generally favor of communication service companies and cable companies right now that don't have a lot of exposure to China just because they're very inexpensive and pricing's holding up really well. In my coverage universe, Microsoft probably has the most exposure of anybody, and we do think we'll come to a resolution here, but Microsoft is definitely walking through a minefield right now.
All right. And Paul, 28 more Chinese entities that were put on the U.S. blacklist this week ahead of these trade talks, including 8 pretty high-profile tech unicorns in China. Moving beyond the talks, I guess longer term, does this represent a further entrenchment of this tech Cold War we're seeing between the two countries? And if so, what then?
Well, I think it represents a further entrenchment of the temporary war between the two countries that's been carried out by the current administration. I don't know that this actually portends anything in terms of what's going to happen beyond that. There are definitely imbalances between the two countries, but those have been exacerbated by policy, and that policy can change.
Tim, Microsoft sort of has the best kind of China exposure, right, that you can have in tech these days. It's a software company. It's cloud-led, so it's harder to pirate than it was 5-10 years ago. So how do you sort of do the calculus on that type of company that is leaning in with the cloud but still has China exposure? Should it fluctuate much no matter which way this thing goes? Does that degree of exposure matter?
It matters a lot. I mean, 10 years ago, it was probably only 2% of China's revenue. It's probably at this point getting closer to 10%, and it's extremely high margins because it's software-based. But more importantly, it kind of solidifies their almost monopoly-like position globally with a lot of their products. And we think China is growing a lot more rapidly than the rest of their businesses, so it's a very, very important country for them.
So how do they potentially get hurt, though, given what their model is and piracy isn't as much a concern? They don't arguably need the same level of help from the Chinese government to police it.
Well, the Chinese government could block their products and services and their cloud capabilities in China if things got really, really bad between the two countries. We think that's highly unlikely, but it's a risk.
Meanwhile, there's a lot of discussion about IT budgets. If IPOs or startups are pressured to be profitable quicker, maybe they spend less. One of your colleagues on the sell side today has a survey saying CIOs more see budgets going down relative to overall revenue in the next 3 years than going up. Does that seem fair?
It's a risk for sure. I would say for startups, it's a lot more of a risk because they're burning so much capital. They need new funding all the time to continue to spend on cloud. Fortunately, Microsoft's a little less exposed to startups than an Amazon Web Services cloud is.
Is that true?
Yeah, they have a lot more startups. Microsoft is a lot more with entrenched companies, more incumbent enterprises. But I would say enterprises do seem to be digitizing their businesses a lot more, and to the degree that they can kind of save money and grow new products and services from migrating to the cloud and digital services, I think they're pretty well positioned.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, no one's suggesting it's not going to be anything but strong, Paul. But I wonder, are you getting the sense out there that purses are going to get pinched even on the margin?
Well, I think that the entire question about the macro has been up in the air really for the last few years. I mean, if I look around at my friends out here, I've had people say, oh, I'm getting out of the market. And they got out of the market 3 years ago, which is a disaster, basically. So I think that, we're going to be subject to cycles in the economy just as we are any other time. Right now, if you look at our companies and if you look across the valley, the good companies are performing well, and the companies that aren't so great aren't performing as well. So I would say at the moment, it feels sort of close to normal. Where it goes in the future based on IT spending, CIO spending, and things like that, we'll have to see. I guess if I would break it maybe into two categories just for simplicity. I'd say just broader infrastructure type of spending is going to be a little bit more volatile or a little bit more at risk. But when you look at things like security spending, there's nearly an inelastic demand curve right now on security because there's this incredible urgency around fraud and cybersecurity. So that really, we haven't seen any real change there.